Hello, love, and welcome back to Boundaries Unleashed. Today's episode is going to be a little different. It's going to be a moment to pause, a moment to reflect, and share a personal chapter of my life with you guys before we dive into next week question and answer episode that I'm going to do for you guys. And so, if you've ever felt like your boundaries that once worked for you all of a sudden don't, or that life transitions, whether it be emotional, spiritual, or literal, have you questioning what's yours to hold, then I think this episode is really going to deeply land with you. Because when you change, or when we change, when our environment, our priorities, our capacity shift, our boundaries have to change too. They have to come with us. They can't just be an era of the past. And for me, this change really came in the form of a cross-continental move from the US to Australia last year. And, I want to talk about what it really looks like when our sacred yeses and our nos evolve, and how to honor that evolution without guilt. Now, like I said a second ago, boundaries have to shift when our circumstances shift. Boundaries are not rigid rules. They're living, breathing reflections of what we need in the present moment. So our needs change, our desires change, seasons of life change. And sometimes, whether you change locations, culture, everything you thought was stable can really be a shock to your system if you're not ready for it. And I definitely felt this when I moved last August. My family and I moved from the east coast of the United States to Australia, to its capital city of Canberra. And yeah, so needless to say, as soon as we landed here, almost everything from literally the moment we landed from day to day shifted for us. So this included driving on the other side of the road, which is really scary when you're not ready for it. I was converting from imperial measurements to metric measurements when you don't think about how challenging that can be, but when you don't know how fast you're driving, when you don't know how much measurements you're putting into your food, when you have no idea what the actual temperature is outside, when you have no idea what kind of weight you're lifting on the bar, you're just like, Jesus, take the wheel. I don't know, it feels heavy. These really affect your day-to-day currency. Everything shifted immediately as soon as we got off the plane. Time zones, God, we were exhausted forever. So things shifted immediately for me. And then I realized, things that I took for granted, or things on my day to day that I didn't think about, like they were just running in the background, I actually had to think about. I had to be a lot more present with. And for the first few months, it really utilized a lot of brain power. And it's one of those, you don't realize it when, it's that kind of scenario when you drive someplace that you drive to every day. So you drive to work, or you drive to school, or you're driving your kids to school. And you have that moment where you're kind of thinking about something important, or maybe not. And you're like, wow, I drove here from my house, but I have no idea how I got here, but I'm parked safely. When you were so deep in other thoughts, but subconsciously your body was watching traffic lights, it was watching for other cars, you were driving the speed limit, like things, you took turns. It just kind of happened. Well, when I first moved here, like I mentioned, everything was so different from the day to day that my brain was truly activated. I had to be very intentional and present to just do everyday tasks. And it utilized a lot of my brain power that I had reserved for creative thinking, for, podcast episodes, working with my clients, my coaching business, being present as a mom and a wife. And it was so much more taxing than I expected. And honestly, it kind of annoyed me. I'm like, I don't want to think about these things. I want to move on and expand other parts of my life that I've been trying to expand. But it really brought me back to the basics. And one of the things I was grateful that I did not have to navigate instantly was a language. English, American English and Australian English are very different, I must say. We're all speaking English, but we're not all speaking the same language. I've come to say as a phrase. It was fun learning to navigate the nuances, but that's not something that had to be an immediate change when I first got here. And I just love how things will just kind of come up that I didn't expect, like different change in words, when we were outfitting our new house that we were in, and just buying appliances and buying, lawn care equipment. We just have different words for different things. And one of the first instances of that I learned is what they call like a weed eater or a weed whacker, which I didn't realize was such a funny phrase to other people outside of the US. But a weed eater, or something that trims the lawn or trims high grass or the edges of a lawn. Well, here in Australia, they call it a whippersnipper. And it just makes me laugh. I don't know. Some of the words that we use for common things, it's just funny to me. So even shopping for household items was always an adventure because half the time the shop owners didn't even know what I was talking about. Most recently, it's when I had to buy an ice scraper, which we are also in opposite seasons. That's another thing I had to navigate. So I left the hot, hot summer and moved into the end of winter here. So we're in the middle of winter here in Australia currently. And there's actually ice that comes every morning on my car. I don't have a garage. I don't park it into a we have a garage, but I don't park my car in there. It's too small. And so I needed an ice scraper, and I went to the hardware stores, good old Bunnings here, and they had no idea what I was talking about. It's such normal, like fair weather here. It's usually a very warm that very few places actually have snow or even ice, and they just had no idea what I was talking about. So it just navigating those things. I'm like, oh, why can't it be easy? But the fact is, it is easy. It's just I didn't grow up here. I didn't grow up with the norms here. So it was me having to shift out of my norms was the uneasy part. One of the other things that instantly kind of surprised me when we first moved here, and things I've come to learn over time, is this Australian mindset of, quote, she'll be all right. Or I can't even do an Australian accent. Sorry, my Aussie friends, you're gonna like be like, girl, you've been here how long and you still don't get it? I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you're Australian and listening. I'm not doing it personally. I'm just a really bad impersonator. But this, like, she'll be all right. Like, she'll be all right. Like, don't worry about it. It's fine. It'll work out. I'm like, but will it? My anxiety kicks in, my perfectionism kicks in. I'm not leaving any of this to chance. I'm going to plan, I'm going to prep, I'm going to put things in place to set myself and my family up for success. And just this whole idea of she'll be all right, like we'll show up when we show up, or things will happen when they're supposed to happen. I'm like, my anxiety kicks off with that. And so, I mean, I love that for you all, for any Australians listening. I love this just innate inner knowing that everything will work out. But I'm from the US. Like a lot of bad shit happens. And we have a lot of we kind of roller coaster of highs and lows. It's a very dynamic country to live in. Um, and so I'm very much used to keeping my head on a swivel, looking out for things, being very observant. I put a lot of practices in place to keep myself and my family safe. And, we're a very capitalistic culture in the US. So it's survival of the fittest. Like the bold are rewarded. And the bolder you are, you could live like a queen or king, but you could also be homeless in the same note. So there's just these really big swings, those highs and lows in the US that I just don't see a lot here in Australia. I feel like everything's kind of even Steven, everything just kind of hums along, everything just more relaxed and unbothered, which in a way is like super amazing. It's like, wow, everything will be all right. Everything will just be okay. But there's just not these highs and lows. So my nervous system is adjusting to all of these changes, these instant changes as soon as I get out of the airport, to everyday shopping experiences just being a challenge with conversion, word choice, best practices, and even mindset of just how people operate and how people schedule and how things are just much more relaxed. It was an eye opener, and my nervous system needed to shift. My boundaries needed to shift. And so my internal compass, if you will, it needed a recalibration. I'm in a new place. I'm in a new environment. I'm under different rules. So, you have to adapt. And one of the most profound lessons that I've learned was that boundaries here in Australia, they're just not about saying no to others. It's really about just being in alignment with yourself and with the you that exists now. So, me as an American in Australia, amongst other Australians, boundaries aren't about who I was last year. It wasn't about who I was last month. It wasn't about who I was in the last city. It's about who I am now, here in the present, in this present moment and season of my life. And these transitions that we make in our life, they definitely affect our emotions and our nervous system clarity, because emotions are messengers. They tell us things. And the big, when we have these big shifts in life, those messages get really loud. So whether you're having grief, whether you're having lots of joy, whether you're having loneliness, uncertainty, or like a lot of hope, they all show up. All of these emotions show up, and we have these, the bigger the shift, the louder they are. And if we're not careful, we can actually slip into old patterns. We can get back to over committing. We can get back to people pleasing. We can get back to over explaining, just because we're trying to cope with the dramatic shifts that we're feeling inside or even externally. And whenever we feel super stressed, we always go back to what we know, what feels certain, or things that we're used to. And so that's to be expected. And no, I felt that when I first moved here. So not only was it just a big shift culturally from nation to nation, but just personally in my life, I was super stressed just even leading up to the move. There was a very uncertain time, like within the 6 months of us actually getting on a plane, there was a lot of uncertainty whether we were actually moving or not. And I don't know if you've ever done an overseas move, or any move for that matter. When you own a home, you have animals and children in school, and you're like, are we moving? Are we not moving? Do I need to sell my house? Do I need to rent my house? Do I need to sell my car? You have to make these big decisions, and you can't really wait to the last second. You have to put things in place. And so there was a lot of, well, I hope it'll be all right, because I'm doing this. You're telling me I'm moving, and I have to make plans. I might have to go buy a new car after I just sold the one I had paid for. But all these things come into play. And I also had a lot of personal loss in my life. Within those 6 months prior to us moving, I had lost a really good friend and client. I had lost a grandmother. I had lost a 16-year-old nephew. I had lost one of my dogs. Like, so much personal loss within the 6 months prior to us moving. Not only am I dealing with stress of this big move, but also just the personal loss and grief and everything that comes up with that. It was a lot. It was a lot. And when you move away, you lose not only, personal loss of like close loved ones, but you lose your social circles. You lose your social comforts, your favorite coffee shop, your favorite coworkers that you enjoyed, certain parks or restaurants that you like to go to, museums that you like to visit, any caretaker or reliable childcare. Like, all that was being shifted as I was moving. And so I do remember when I first moved here, not only was I recovering from grief and distress, but I also remember feeling very numb and very, very lonely, mainly because just everything was different. Everything felt different. Nothing was the same. I was living in a hotel. We didn't have our household goods. We didn't even have any of our stuff, just the suitcases of clothes on our back that we brought with us. Um, and I just remember feeling kind of numb, like my whole life has shifted and the whole world is moving on. Like, everything feels so different for me, but everything around me points to normalcy for everyone else. And that's the story that I was telling myself, is that no one cared. No one cared that my family had just moved over here. No one cared that I had just lost a bunch of family members. No one cared that I had to put a dog down and rehome another dog. No one cared that I didn't have much access to close friends with a 14 to 16-hour time difference. And the impression I got from others, and it was kind of reflected back to me through different comments when people would say, I must be ecstatic living here. You must be so excited. It was exciting. It is adventurous. There is joy with newness, but I kind of got the impression that people only thought my life was going to get better, without realizing that this loneliness or this numbness of change would come into play. And so it influenced my boundary setting, because this impression that I was feeling was making me feel guilty for not experiencing more. My body just wanted to rest when I got here. My soul needed that recovery from grief. I was adjusting to all these new norms and I just wanted to rest. But when people, the first thing out of their mouth is, what are you doing this weekend? You going away? What are you going to go visit? What are you going to do? You're only here for a short time. Like, you should go do all these things. I'm like, I don't want to do all these things. But I felt this pressure that if I wasn't doing these things, that I'd be missing out or not capitalizing on this opportunity to live in this wonderful country. And so whenever I was ever invited to something, I said yes. Like, yes, I do want to experience that. Yes, I do want to go here. Yes, I do want to do this. Yes, I do want to go out. I worked out almost every day of the week. My body needed so much physical processing, but I almost over relied on it. And my over 40-year-old body was like, girl, you need to rest. You cannot do 6 to 7 days workout a week. You need to have a recovery day in there. And so I really noticed that my boundaries were being shifted based on what I thought I should be doing or what people expected me to be doing. And I forgot my own timeline. I forgot to listen to my intuition, to actually listen to what I needed, not what I thought I should be doing since I have this amazing opportunity. Okay. And did all those things help relieve my loneliness? Yes. Did all those things help me feel more energized and less numb? Yes. But it was also at the cost of listening to my intuition. And so I just want to remind all of us, even just through my own experience, and maybe you can relate to this yourself, when we're in these emotionally raw seasons, our nervous system actually needs more grace, not pressure. It craves space. It doesn't want the hustle. It wants stillness. And being able to listen to that is so powerful. So I stopped trying to be everyone to everything. I stopped proving my worth from being over available. I really became intentional to make space for quiet. I said no more often. I made different choices. And I really embraced that sacred pause. That sacred pause is so important because it gives us space to actually listen to our body. It gives us space to listen to our intuition and gives us space to actually acknowledge, what do I need in this moment, in this era of my life? And it taught me my boundaries aren't just for protection, they're actually energetic compassion. So take that with you if that resonates. Okay. Now, our environment actually speaks to our nervous system as well. And sometimes we don't always notice. So the pace, the people, the social norms, even the way people say no or make plans. So, one of the big cultural differences I noticed when I first moved here was the prioritization of vacation or holiday time. Now, I love this for Australia. I love this for y'all. I love that you get so much time off from work and from school and you get to spend it however you want. Like, I love that there's this really nice balance of work and play. That is definitely something that I feel like is lacking in the US. But it also changes perspective as well, like that different cultural of that being institutionalized here. The school terms are 4 school terms with 2-week breaks in between each one, and then a long 6-week break between the end of one school year and the next school year. Very different from the States, who go pretty much 9 months of school out of the year with a 3-month summer break. But I love it because you would hear things at school drop off, or even like my friends at the gym, or even some of my husband's coworkers, that once we started getting to week 7 or 8, like in a school term, people will start complaining like, oh my gosh, we've been just going so long, like my brain hurts, or it's been a tough, last few weeks, tough term. Like, I can't wait for this break. We really need this break. And in my mind, this is how like warped I feel like the US has made me, is I'm like, 8 weeks. If you told me that someone took vacation every 8 weeks, I'd be like, they just left. Like, but that's the mindset. Like, that is, it's the cultural difference of just how people value time and how they want to use it. But I love it that it's almost systematic here. All businesses and in even government runs on this school system that that's that 2 weeks off, man, the city pretty much like shuts down, or is expected that people aren't going to be working as much, or people are going to be on travel. They just leave the city. They don't even want to be in their own home. Like, they just like, we're going on adventure. We're leaving. We've booked the trains. We've booked the planes. We've done all the things. So it is really interesting. For me, that was a big cultural difference. And just being in the environment just changes how you experience things or how your body experiences things. And what I often notice too with Australia is that boundaries often come with a lot less performance. People don't apologize about taking time off. There's more directness. I feel like Australians on a whole are very like, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm going, and when. And there's no discussion. It's like, that's the truth, that's what's happening. And you're like, okay. And everyone agrees with the plan, regardless of what it means for them. So it's very interesting. And by witnessing all of this and actually being in it, being in the culture, it reminds me to stop softening my nose with disclaimers or feeling apologetic about taking time off or having to shift things around. It's just a good reminder. Being clear is kind, even when it's unfamiliar, even when it's something new. And of course, there's always going to be the spiritual integration piece to all of this shifting, this season of change and boundaries. And there's always this spiritual layer that kind of runs underneath, because the spiritual piece is always going to be the foundation of what we think about ourselves, who we are, what we're about, what we're not about. And for me, this piece came into play when I did this move and everything shifted. It gave me space to really fine tune and listen to my intuition again, because I didn't have the normal things happening. Everything was so new and different. My normal day-to-day operations were starting from scratch because it was in a new time, new place, new time zone, new everything. This move really allowed me to create a blank slate and start new and start fresh. So even though my mind was very busy with adjusting to all the newness, my spirit is what really sustained me through the move and allowed me to clear out the expectations of what I was used to. Any of the US cultural expectations of working right away, never taking time off, no break with things. I was able really to shed all that. And my body gave me signals that allowed my intuition to really activate and become even more powerful than it was. It allowed the background noise of expectation to just dial down and fade away. I'm so appreciative of that. And boundaries became less rules and more of reconnection. And it was reconnection to myself, reconnection to navigating grief, reconnection to the joy and adventure in my new environment, and to realize it was okay to shift my boundaries because I had shifted. Not only had I shifted physically and literally, but I had shifted internally as well. I reconnected deeper to my intuition. I was able to listen to it and make choices that served me in this new space. And when we learn to honor those whispers, because sometimes they start out as whispers, it'll start like, hey, it's okay. Let's do this. Let's try something new. It's going to be a whisper and it's going to feel different. It's going to feel maybe uncomfortable at first, but you're going to hear it. And when you listen to it, the subtle yeses and the nos that come through your body, that come through your deeply feeling self, that come through your intuition, when we listen to them, we don't have to defend our boundaries, right? We're just going to embody them. When we say, I trust myself, she knows what's best, let's just go and do it. And you don't have to feel like you have to over-explain, justify, defend, especially when there's shifts to your boundaries. Maybe there's a difference from what you've done in the past, and maybe someone's noticed it or even you've noticed it. You don't have to defend that shift. You just have to embody it and own it and love it. So now I want to turn the mic back to you. And I want you to ask yourself, where in your life have you changed? And are your boundaries evolving with you? And if they are, how? And if not, are they stuck in an old season? Okay. So where in your life have you changed, and are your boundaries evolving with you? Really sit with that. I think it's going to be very insightful for you. And also, I hope it sparks some questions that come up to mind, or it sparks some revelations for you, because next week, I'm actually going to be leading a listener Q&A session as our podcast episode, and I want to hear from you. So through this reflection of personal change and how your boundaries are evolving or stuck in certain eras, questions will come up about it. And I want you to submit them to me. You can do it through the link I have in the show notes. So it'll just be a contact form, or you can DM me directly on Instagram at vicky.pittman.coach. And all that'll be in the show notes. So don't worry, you'll have direct access to that. And I want you to submit them because no question is too big or too small. Whether you're dealing with change in family dynamics, change in circumstance, change in spiritual connection, maybe different boundaries you've tried in the past, people pleasing fatigue, energetic burnout, whatever it is, whatever questions you have about it, I want to support you through it. And your story matters. And your question could actually unlock someone else's transformation. So don't be afraid to ask. I want you to submit them, put them in the link, or DM me on Instagram. And I also just personally want to thank you for listening and holding space for my story and letting me share this chapter of my life with you. And I'm sure you'll hear more and more nuggets of Australia and my move and how it's different and how it's better and all the ways in future episodes. So thank you for holding space for my story. And also want to give you just a few more reminders that when you shift, your boundaries are meant to shift with you. Okay. These are not signs of selfishness. These are signs of self-remembering. Your truth is evolving. Your no is sacred. And your yes, it gets to be rooted in joy, alignment, and peace. So I'll see you next week, loves. And don't forget, your questions just might be the one someone else needs to hear. And always love yourself like you mean it. Much love.